Here it comes. Welcome to Everyone Racers,
a show designed for the world of low-dollar racing
and oddball car culture.
It doesn't matter what kind of Lemon Champ or Lucky Track Dog league you run.
SCCA or NASA.
We don't discriminate.
As long as you drive it hard, you built it yourself.
Join us each week for tech discussions,
Tips, tricks, as well as news and notes
from the world of amateur endurance racing.
And whether it's on the spot,
hella sweet or
lucky enough. And Chrissy,
and I give you just the tip.
We're sure you'll giggle a little
and learn even less.
Everyone report to the paddock.
This is Chris.
This is Chrissy.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Mental.
And we are Everyone Racers. Welcome to an AMC Straight 6 episode. It's episode 258. If you're not driving your 70 AMC product, check out your E1R bingo card. There's no prizes, but it's still fun.
We would like to know if you win, though.
Absolutely, we would.
We won't give you anything. I'll give you a koozie next time I see you. How about that?
Keychains.
Maybe a keychain.
Maybe a keychain.
Maybe. Yep. Depends on how good your bingo is.
I was going to say justify your loyalty.
That too. Good. Oh, you got a podcat. That's good.
There you go.
I do.
My pod dogs have left. Who's starting? What you working on?
I think Mental should start. Mental. What are you working on?
Crap. Okay. I had to renew the registration on the RV, which requires a emissions test in Nevada, which is odd to me. And tomorrow I fly to Utah Motorsports campus to work with Extreme Experience. I'm meeting up with a friend, actually a bunch of friends because I know all those guys, but one of my friends from when he was a college student in Oklahoma is stationed out there. He will be instructing with us and he is loaning me his car. And it was, so it's not guess the rental, but it's ask my friends. I have my choice of an E46 wagon manual.
Yes.
A Mini Cooper manual, or an E30 4-door manual that he's going to loan me for the weekend.
Whichever one you haven't driven.
I haven't driven
ever.
You never had an E30? I thought you had an E30.
Oh, I'm talking of these cars. Yeah,
no. I meant whichever one you haven't spent time in.
I've had an E46.
You've never had a Mini, have you?
I've driven a Mini Cooper, but yeah. I don't know. I'm leaning hard towards the E30. It's a really well.
I'm leaning that way too, because the ones that are still around are typically in pretty good shape, and it's fun to see if they're still any good.
Yeah, and Grant is an outstanding mechanic, and he's got a half a dozen other cars. He's got a couple of JDM. If anyone's interested in R32 Skyline, get a hold of me because he's selling one. So yeah, he's got some cool stuff.
Yeah, I don't blame him for not loaning you that one.
And I just like to sell whoever this guy is, who's probably in my cell phone. Mental borrowed my Veloster and treated it very nicely, and only gave me a little bit of COVID. So there it is.
I didn't have the COVID. You had the COVID. You do the math. I still don't have the COVID.
Schrodinger's disease.
But
no, treated it great.
I unintentionally conducted a bit of an experiment this week. I rode the scooter to work. I've talked about my commute before. It's just 12 miles. I can get to work faster on a 50cc scooter than I can in an AMG. So I have fallen down a rabbit hole of perhaps I should be riding a scooter to work more often.
It also gets 90 miles per gallon instead of 17.
I wish it was 17.
That's what used to get mixed in my
goodness.
Yeah, it's
get a 250.
I've got motorcycles.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying a scooter. I don't know. There's lots of cheap scooters kicking around here, and I don't know. So
but you already have one though.
I do. Technically, it's Vicky's, so
she will let you use it.
She probably.
I don't know. Didn't he drop it?
I did. I still have a scar on my arm from that one. Yeah. So that's it. But my week was lame. Next week I'll have lots of interesting stories to tell about. So if you're coming out to Utah Motorsports campus this weekend, stop by, say hi. I'll be your instructor in a Lamborghini or Ferrari, whatever. I see more interesting stuff. I would like to hear what Chrissy was working on.
I had another leisurely weekend, which was lovely. And then I changed the brakes on my sister's car because she brought it in for air quotes service. And it was delivered to our house to do some service. Chris can tell you. Chris, why don't you tell us?
Which sister, which car?
Kim and the Mazda 3.
The 3, then.
The 3.
The silver 3, if I remember correctly.
Nope.
Nope.
The silver 3 never was hers.
You
Like,
have it in your
keep
head.
thinking
You
that it's
really,
that one.
really like it was
She has
not
one
a
you've
silver.
never seen. It's black. It's a
Oh,
sedan.
No,
You've
I
never
don't know
seen
that
it.
one.
Nope.
Exactly. But this is the Mazda 3 that could. This damn thing has hit everything but the lottery and still just keeps running. It's amazing.
They're made out of Tupperware. They really
It's
are.
thriving on neglect, apparently. So
And your handiwork for that.
yes. No. Well, at this point, the car has been around for like 5 years and 50,000 miles, and none of us can believe it. So I actually had to do things that I never thought I would do in this car again, like, spark plugs and a transmission fluid change and an air filter. But while, the transmission fluid's changing, I also replaced a slightly weeping axle seal and an axle that had a pinhole in the boot that was slinging just the tiniest little bit of grease. So that all got changed along with the oil. That was 11,000 miles on that oil. Again, the damn car just runs on neglect.
Fine.
That was my normal.
Right?
Yep. Chrissy did the rear brakes. That was good.
I did.
What else did I do? I don't know. Stuff.
Now,
It's-
is that one because it's the coupe? Is that one
Sedan,
rear drums
but-
or sedan? I'm sorry, the sedan.
No,
Is that
all
the rear
discs.
drum? Rear
All
drum?
disc.
Okay. All right.
Mazda 3s were always all disc, which is
I
nice.
don't think I would have signed up to do drums, to tell you the
It's
truth.
the
Yeah.
reason I bought it. I was cross shopping in 02 when I got the first one, was the Protege or the Focus, and the Focus had drums, and I wasn't doing it.
No.
Nope.
Wasn't gonna have it.
Fair.
We
So I
did
did
'em.
all that. Took 4 hours of work last night, but all done and back to them, which is good. And now I'm prepping for vacation because we're going to be going a couple places in the next couple weekends and trying to get all our stuff together.
Sorry, one more 3 question. How many miles on it? Because you said you changed the plugs.
215.
Okay. My Protege, I gave away I crashed at 211 on the stock plugs that came from the factory, and the Mazda 3 that I traded in at 180 had the spark plugs from the factory.
Yeah.
So there you have
That
it.
doesn't mean
folks.
it's good.
If you hate cars, get a Mazda 3.
That's right.
I mean, sure.
Thrive on neglect. Who knew?
Yep.
Great.
Anyway, who's next? Me?
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you're well. It's left.
Am I,
What do you
am I
do?
the last left?
Yep.
We celebrated my wife's birthday. It was a milestone. No, I won't tell you what the number is. But we celebrated by going to a restaurant that was over 100 years old. It was in a hotel that began as a hotel for whalers on the Jersey
Yes.
Shore. Not the boats, the guys with harpoons. Pretty impressive. Yeah, and it was good fish. So there it is. Due to some complicated banking reasons, I need a certificate of occupancy for my house.
Yes, so that it's safe to live in, or to prove that it's safe to
And
live in.
I
Yep.
failed heavily.
Yeah. No
Is
way.
this after that you did all the housework stuff?
There was a lot of housework that still needs to be done, I guess. So
Okay.
I got the grumpiest inspector in the world, and he walked in and he said, you got some open permits that have never been inspected in this house. And I went, nope, news to me. Turns out that when we put our split system in during COVID, the township office wasn't open, so we never got it inspected. That was taken care of this week, so that was on the work list. And then he walked in and he said, when'd you put this pool in? Because that doesn't pass either. And I said, I bought the house with the pool. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's coming up this weekend. And then y'all know I live in a split level house. I never did that railing over the 4-foot drop. So that actually got done just last night. Actually, Jim came over and helped me finish it up because I had been doing all of the standing. And
How when did that railing come down? For reference, when you did some floor remodeling, you took
2020.
the-
Yeah. Probably 2 years. 2 years. But we liked it that way. It like really opened the house up.
Really
It was
opened the
really
place,
nice.
you know,
Tied the
that-
room together.
It did.
That real drop off that you're just, misstep, fall off the chair,
Yeah.
roll a ball, it's just a drop off. It's cool.
My kid's 14. If he falls off,
Dude,
It's
I'd
Did the
survival of the
dog?
fittest.
Did the
fall
dog ever
off.
fall off?
No, dogs never fell off.
shoot.
your kid
would jump
survived an
down.
electrocuting door.
Yes, please. Nothing.
Harden up.
Yeah. So this weekend I will be doing pool fencing and pool gates. So yay, fun.
Yay, fun.
Great.
Fun. News and notes time.
James Gilboy at The Drive had an article on the F1 engine rules for 2026. Last week, the FAA, who oversees Formula One, released the new engine specs for the next generation. Cliff notes are in the article title: quieter, laggier, less power from internal combustion. F1 cars are still going to be powered by turbo V6s. They'll still make a combined around 1,000 horsepower. More of this power is going to come from the hybrid systems, though. As a result, regenerative braking will nearly eliminate the role of friction brakes on the rear axles, similar to how Formula E cars have foregone rear friction brakes entirely. F1 is also going to phase out the motor generator unit heat, the MGU-H. That's the one on the turbo. It's between the compressor and the turbine, and it's intended to either spin the compressor up at lower revs to get the boost up or capture energy from the spinning turbo when you let off the gas. So this system really apparently has been a barrier, expensive barrier for some of the new engine suppliers. By getting rid of it, that apparently will make people happier.
Because that technology is going to be found nowhere in a road car.
Actually, Mercedes already just put it in a road car. The new
Really?
AMG A45 has an MGU-H on its turbo.
Heh. Who knew?
Chris knew apparently.
People.
Look.
Yeah, the
Look.
biggest Mercedes fan on this podcast didn't know that. So that's awesome.
Look.
Yep. I'd just like to say to anyone out there, since we're talking about Formula One, if anybody wants to pay me $21 million not to go to work next year, sign me up.
All you had to do is not be very good.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
especially for a job you're not good at. Anyway,
I could rock being not good at
I
Formula
could
One.
suck a lot. Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway, go
how
on.
tough is your skin, though? That's the problem.
For $21 million, it's pretty tough.
Okay. All right. All right.
Slag me off in any. Anyway, no, not our stories. Next story.
Now, no doubt you're on social media and all this week you've been filled with these wonderful Pebble Beach, Monterey Car Week, beautiful collectors' cars, but that's not really us, is it? We're everyone racers people. So in case it got buried, all this other stuff, in conjunction with that in your house, of course, there was Radwood and Concours De Lemons, which one of the judges was Judge Kristen and Jay. And we've got links to both of those galleries of 30 or 40 more approachable cars, including the infamous Lincoln Continental, the old West Coast Lemons car that has the horse on the roof that you actually have to ride. It's also been in a couple of rallies. There's some really good stuff. And pneumatics, they just did the bargain version of the band that always wears the helmets, Daft Punk, except they were just stormtroopers and Boba Fett. So it's worth poking through both those galleries to remember that there are cool cars out there that people actually drive and wrench on themselves.
Do we still have somebody says Citroen incorrectly on the bingo card?
Probably. Yeah.
Yes. Somebody got a bingo. Somebody got a square. There were a lot of cool cars there. It was great looking through them. I'm just looking through them now. There's some really good looking. There's a Robin that looks like brand new, like really cool cars.
The 3-wheeled Robin. That one.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
No.
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, Autoweek popped some interesting discussion this week with 5 questions that about the F1 summer break. Even though we are a little halfway through the season, it's a good reminder to look at our F1. It's not actually to look at our F1 Fantasy League, which somehow Jeff is in second place because we all forgot to and don't care anymore, which just means we are absolutely going back to the old version because we literally do not care this time. So sorry that I made this.
Not as good of a version.
I made the suggestion to move to F1. I am now admitting I was very wrong.
Hey,
so
everyone's got to try. You got to try that MGU-H, and then if it sucks, get rid of it.
right. So next year, we'll absolutely go back to Fantasy GP. So I apologize about that one. Discussion points. Will Verstappen wrap it up? Mercedes, can Hamilton continue the losing? Will he continue the losing streak, or will he get another win back and break that awesome, amazing streak of break the streak of people winning after 300? And will Vettel get one last shining moment? Lots of good questions there.
And it's worth noting, Hamilton has never been winless since starting in Formula One, even his rookie year.
I don't like any of these stats. I think he can do it, but it's got to be. Although I hear there's rain this weekend because my coworkers are huge fantasy fans. So before meetings start, we sit around and talk about F1. Yeah, apparently there's supposed to be rain in quali and in the race. So,
well, I seem to remember a race from last year where it rained in Spa, and it went great, right? All 4 laps.
2 laps even. Yep.
it was the longest. We put it on the replay, and we're like 4 hours. What? And then
Fast
we put it
forward,
on, and
fast
then there's
forward.
a whole bunch of people sitting around eating chips, and they're just like, "Are we going?" And then there was laps, and then they turned it off, and I was like, "It's the
That's
boringest."
when George got his second place because he did a great quali.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you couldn't go anywhere because everything was under yellow, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So if there's rain this weekend, maybe the goat will do well in the rain.
I hope
Yep.
so.
You hope Verstappen wins.
No, I like to mix it up.
That's
mean,
weird. But
Because
okay.
pretty much Verstappen is going to win the championship at this point. So let's let some other people win. I'd like to see somebody else on
You're
the podium.
so equal opportunity. It's so
What I
cute.
like is racing that's competitive.
Okay.
Hamilton is the best driver ever. That's why it got boring. He won all the time.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
Anyway, sponsor section.
As it's episode 258, if you want something awesome with an AMC 258 in it, you can find it with everything else at racingjunk.com. We found a time capsule of a 258 powered Concord based 78 AMX. This is
Really?
Are you sharing
silver
this?
on
I can't
blue
wait.
vinyl. I will. It's one of 2,500 made, and surely one of very few left, especially in this condition. And yeah, it's phenomenal. Let me share my screen here.
I
So for those of
just
you
brought it up.
Already
It
doing
is-
it.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
it is. That is really, really
Is that-
gorgeous.
New. How many miles on that?
It
65,000. No, it says
Yeah.
65,000 miles on it.
miles.
All
But
right,
look,
tell us
you
more.
could-
Tell us
you can
more.
eat off of that engine. It looks like it's got factory air conditioning to it. I mean, the blue valve cover is still shiny. All the silver. It's the original silver car. The blue vinyl interior, but it's definitely sporty because it's got buckets and it's got a rally steering wheel.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, this was a sporty machine in 1978, and that 258 straight six under the hood had like 115 horsepower out of 4.2 liters, because that was what you did at the time. Yeah, it's
these wheels are actually, those wheels are probably pretty rare. And what I also, being a
yeah,
person of
it's-
this era, I'm impressed. It's got louvers.
it's not loading because mental
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
blasting.
Giga blasting.
you know, but it's got
Oh,
turbine wheels. I mean, it's a
There
very
she is.
very
Look
There
at
they
that.
go. Oh, very
Yeah.
nice.
turbine
Yeah,
wheels,
the
white letter
louvers.
tires,
Look.
louvers, this red pinstripe, like this. I mean, this was a disgrace to the AMX name, but it was a cool car now looking back in 1978. So that brings me
Wow,
another
that
question
was.
though to everyone quickly. If you had to pick an AMC product to own, which would it be?
I'll go first.
Okay.
It looks very similar, but it would
What
be
is it?
SX4.
SX4. So this is the same
Really?
exact body, right?
how
Of the
sporty
AMX.
that
They
is.
just don't-
It's close. That one's
It's
a
close.
lift back. The other one was a notch back.
Oh, okay. Yes. So
Right.
this
This
is
is
the
the,
lift
uh,
back
AMC
four-wheel
Spirit.
drive. Yes.
Yep.
AMC Spirit SX4. So this actually came in a V8. Came in a 250, the 258 also, but would come in a V8 with a stick, I believe. And
Yeah.
it
This
was
is the
the
s- The
four-wheel
sporty
drive.
Eagle.
Yeah. This was the four-wheel drive crossover SUV. Yeah, right. It was a hatchback with four-wheel drive. Sign me
They
up.
didn't have SUVs back then.
I
This
know.
was your SUV.
This was,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's what I would like. Is this a cop out because I don't want the 258? Maybe,
No, not at all.
but I love this. This is like 1983, 84. Sign me up all day long.
There's an entire race in Lemons in the Pacific Northwest dedicated to that vehicle. It's fantastic.
Love it.
We were actually having an extended discussion at work the other day about the new concept of the electric skateboard and retrofitting older cars with modern EV drivetrains. And I thought an electric Gremlin, especially if you could get the Levi's edition that they actually use denim for the seat coverings. I would love
Nice.
an electric Gremlin Levi's edition.
Okay.
That's very specific. Nice.
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm going Pacer because
Boom. That's
it is
gorgeous.
it's so pretty, and it's so weird looking. It's like the Citroen was. It's so like the bubble in the back, and just like, and this one happens to be very nice. I'm not sure what year this was on sale, but it's just an awesome.
That's a great
looking,
color.
Weird.
Yeah.
I know. It's like a
Like a
baby
light blue.
light
Yeah.
blue. Yeah, this one actually has tint on it. The front's funky looking, but this one is all the retro. Look at the wood trim panels. So I really
corduroy seats.
yeah, I really like the back bubble. Like from the back, you're saying like, that's a weird looking car. So that's where I'm going.
Okay. I'm gonna have to take, this is kind of an easy button, but I've always wanted one of these.
Oh, really?
An 85 CJ or some kind of early
That's a good
80s CJ7.
choice.
Red. I wanted a red one. I don't know why.
I didn't know this
would-
was an option.
I would prefer it with a 304 V8 and the 4-speed.
Yep.
But I'll take the 258. But just a nice condition CJ.
Yeah.
I always wanted one
304
of these.
4-speed was what was available in the SX4 also.
I've
Yeah.
told that the from an off-roading perspective that the 256 or 258
58.
6-cylinder was a better off-roading
Sure.
engine than the
But
304.
but V8,
Fair.
it makes V8 noises, and who cares?
So this is what
Wow.
this is
Okay.
what always annoyed me about the AMC V8 is it was the same displacement as the International Harvester V8, and everybody would try and give me parts for the other. Like, four or 304, I can get you a part. I got a distributor for that off my my Gremlin. No, different motor.
And the 345 is so much better anyway.
Yeah, well,
That's
well,
enough to you're
Love when I got
so
after-
mad about that.
I
Raw.
was 19.
Don't
I
give me
was filled with
parts.
anger.
Who wants to take a bet that some of those parts are still in Jeff's garage?
Probably.
My mother threw them all out.
That's true. She did.
With the car.
Oh
well.
goodness! All
I do
right,
have
that
the
was
shop
fun.
manual still in my garage.
Thanks for that.
Good.
Listener feedback.
Hey, in response to our last episode, Michael K said all the comments are dead on about everyone needs to know their job and be there and be ready. This was a discussion about how to win and how to win Class B, and we really talked about all the efficiency stuff. So Michael chimed in and said this really helped us. He's the Polka Kings win B even before our car was out of contention because they realized they did not have a fourth guy. Oh no, this helped the Polka Kings win Class B because they realized they did not have a fourth guy to hold their fire bottle to do their most efficient fuel stop. So they didn't have the planning down and help them not win Class B. Help the
No,
other guys win.
because Michael helped them, they got
Yeah.
the B.
Oh,
Yes. That's
Got
what
it.
is.
Now I'm getting it. I'm
Read
like,
the notes
where
before you
I
get on the show.
had to work late tonight. I get it now.
Oh, the show notes come up early.
Look, where the comma is matters, and I missed it.
Don't eat
Let's eat,
grandma.
Grandma.
Let's eat grandma.
Yeah.
Let's eat grandma.
I was thinking, I helped my friend Jack off a horse.
Punctuation saves lives.
I was thinking of Scrappy our Fuji's, so there's that. All the grammar is really important sometimes. Obviously,
Oh,
little
Somebody
Jeff
say
was
something. I'm out.
little Jeff was not interested in grammar.
I helped
Excellent.
my friend Jack, comma, off a horse.
Josh H responded to a "what you working on" quote. I just got my daily driver wrapped up doing timing chains, throw out bearings, and getting rid of the stupid internal oil filter setup for a traditional canister filter on the outside of the block. That was fun. I'm sensing a little sarcasm.
Oh, Josh H., do we know what kind of car that was? It had a filter inside the block?
Hmm.
Mm.
Chrissy,
Oh.
I added one. Sorry.
I think they are gigablasting.
Ooh,
They are frozen.
Wow,
I'll read theirs while
go
they catch
for
up.
it. Yes, while they get
Rob
caught up.
Keller, our friend of Ford fan, was binging old episodes, and he asked about the car in Jeff's background on episode 140.
Because you had the movie going, and it was the one where Phil put the camera on the back because you can see the flag. You can see the flag waving.
Yeah. Well, that was the boat, which is the same one I have behind me now if you're watching on YouTube. But Phil would always bring a GoPro, and he would mount it to the rear bumper of a car for every race, and he would try and do it on a slow car so that he could see all of the people passing. So that must have been that. I mean, that was like 140. That was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. It was not too long after we started doing the YouTube videos. All right, now we're hearing Chris saying that his internet is back.
Sorry
we don't
about
have
that.
it. We don't. Oh, it's all good. We figured you guys were gigablasting.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what part of the show we're
sorry
up to.
about that.
I'll tell you what part of the show we're up to. Hi, Chrissy's mom.
Hi, Mom.
I was
Your
gonna
internet
say,
usually doesn't
family.
gigablast.
That's you missed a golden one right there. You know
Sorry.
whose internet never gigablast?
Sorry.
Whose internet is always on point?
Yeah.
Chrissy's mom.
Chrissy's mom.
Yeah.
I feel
Good
like
sister.
Chrissy's gigablasting again.
Mm-hmm. Appears that way.
You guys have some kind
Oh.
of storm going on out there?
No, not that I know of. Oh well, whatever.
Cat chewing
All
on
right.
your internet cables? Is that what's going on?
I hope not.
That would be the world's worst podcast if it chewed your
I
one
know.
connection
No,
on there.
she's usually good about that. She's had dinner.
When I lean back, I disappear in the boat. Main
Which is funnier.
topic time.
Yeah, it just disappears like the boat is yelling.
So now you stayed at
Oh, there it goes.
There you go.
All right. It's not a YouTube. Keep going, everyone. Main
All right.
topic time.
So inspired by a listener at Thompson, this is all about our mysteries and yours. Because when you have mysteries at the track, they're difficult. They're challenging. They're really, really frustrating. We've all been there. We've all seen it done. So let's talk about some of the mysteries that we've had and some other people have had and figure out what do we do about those? What's
Awesome.
the diagnosis path? What is the levels you need to think about so that the next time you are stuck with a mystery, maybe you'll remember one of these top tips. Not really top tips, but just learn from our mistakes, folks.
Yeah.
This whole show is about learn from our mistakes.
I know Chrissy's coming in and out.
I'm here. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's all good.
Do we want to start with one of our stories, or do we want to start with a listener story?
I like starting with Matt's story. If Chrissy's
All
ready
right.
to
Yeah,
go.
sure.
No, well, I can read it then. Anyway.
See. Oh, I'm
I'll
sorry.
start it.
Okay.
So Matt F of Silent But Deadly and Space Pants.
Space pants. Da-da-da-da-da. Space pants.
So when we were running the Mustang at NJMP with the turbo 2.3, the car would run.
That's the problem right there.
Okay, good. Yep. The car would run great for a short while, then run progressively worse over time. Replaced the fuel pump and assorted ignition parts. Long story short, the distributor was retarding timing to the point where it wouldn't run at all. Moral of the story, Matt says, bring every spare part you own and then some with you if you're running an obsolete oddball engine,
Good advice.
even
Now-
when you're not.
And that's always an excellent advice. If you're driving something stupid, bring a bunch of them. Like when you guys ran all of the Austins years ago.
Mhm.
But what is some helpful hints that someone who's new at this could use to diagnose whether or not the car cutting out is a fuel problem or an ignition problem?
Okay.
Mm.
I think we're going to get there. Before we go there, let me just say that I want to talk about Matt's story for a moment. I think this is the hardest things to do. When it runs, but doesn't run great.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, you know what I mean? Like if it's not running, you can usually figure that out.
How many times do we say
Totally.
like we look
Is
at
it
each other?
better?
It's
Is
better.
It better?
It's better.
And that's the next story is all about
Send
is
it.
it better? And all of that's about
Better.
fuel and
It's
spark.
not
too.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump right into fuel and spark. Should I talk about the Citroen? Should we go
Yeah.
there next? Okay.
Because
So
that's what that was all about. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
great time to do it.
so we had a 70, what was it? 73?
73.
73
Yeah,
Citroen SM.
you got
And I
it.
said Citroen, I think okay.
Yeah, pretty good.
And it would not run great. It would run great
better.
in the
It's better.
driveway. It would drive around. the
I don't think it was
block.
great ever.
It would
The driveway, it was
dri-
okay.
It would drive around the block. It would rev. It would sound awesome. And then we put it on the track and it would go, I'm done. 6 turns later, half a lap later, lap and
Threw
a
up the
half.
white flag.
Yeah, it basically would die on the side of the track and we'd have to tow it in and we would try and figure out what was wrong with it. And then we would mess with it. We would find sometimes it wouldn't start for a while. Sometimes it would start. I mean, it was like, and then it would start and it would be like, we fixed it. It's better.
Yeah. Oh.
And then we would send it out exactly what Chrissy said. We would stand around and go, well, is it better? Or is
Better.
it Citroen better? I think it's better. Let's send it.
Really became a actual catchphrase.
And we did this for 2 full races, really, because it was the third race and we really
A lot
got
of times
it
in
to
our
run.
driveway and driving around the block too.
Yeah. This was not a take it to the track and not think it's going to run situation. We were very sure that we had licked this problem every single time we sent it out again. Well, not every time, but when we put it on the trailer to go to the track, we were very sure, oh, we got it now. So
Because we always fixed something.
we always fix something, and
Every
that was
time.
part of the problem
Right.
is we kept finding things. Do you want to do like the butcher's bill, Chris, before I get into when I finally yelled at the stars and
Well, I'm not sure what the butcher's bill was before that. I mean, I guess in general, like we obviously did plugs and wires. I changed the distributor to a Buick conversion, so it was not the ridiculous dual coil Citroen one. So that was before we even started.
we
There was
changed
no fuel system, so I put in a fuel pump, a facet fuel pump, using the
external tank fuel pump.
Yep, just using an inline, thread-in filter right by the pump.
We changed the alternator. We were very sure we were
Yep.
having electrical problems.
Yep,
And
we
we
even
threw a lot of electric at it.
I changed the voltage regulator to a Ford one. The alternator we moved to a GM1 wire one at the track. The
Building our own bracket because obviously that didn't go there.
Yep. The let's see, we tried energizing the coil from the Jazzy, which
Yep,
because we wanted
remember
a
that.
separate 12-volt source to see how that was.
And
Also
For
didn't work.
those who might just be joining us, the Jazzy is literally one of those mobility scooters
Yes,
with a little
correct.
controller on the side. So yeah, it's
And it
it's
had,
a
like,
chair that moves.
2 6-volt
And it 3
power
12 volts.
3 12-volt batteries in it. Yeah. So we kept attacking electric because we were very sure the fuel system was okay. Because when we bought it, the guy said, I just had the fuel tank cleaned. And Chris said,
I think he said the previous owner had the fuel
whatever,
tank
yeah,
cleaned, and
whatever.
it's just been sitting here since.
and
Which
Chris said,
never trust that. Never.
I put in the fuel pump. We knew the fuel pump was working. We tested it frequently. We could hear it buzzing.
Later on, I
And-
realized that fuel pump wasn't powerful enough. That was one of the first things we eventually changed.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
we fixed it now. We
We
put in a
fixed it.
fuel pump that flows better.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
that should
yeah.
do it.
Send it. No. We should mention that this had 3 Weber carburetors on it that Jeff learned to sync and test because Chris made me watch YouTube videos and gave me a sucker tool. That's a tool that tests how much they suck, not a tells how
It's
much
a tool,
the team
tool you
sucks.
give to the no, it's a tool you give to the sucker on your team. It's here,
Oh,
here,
this is-
watch.
oh, oh,
Hey,
oh,
everybody
oh,
else,
this-
tool.
watch this.
Yeah,
Watch this.
try
what
to
it
fix
was.
this with this tool.
Oh, goodness.
I
I
feel attacked. I'm just,
I- tuned those carburetors constantly during this problem. We kept moving that sucker. I kept not rejetting, but adjusting the jets. Yuri came over. Yuri recently said he enjoyed that he got a shout out. So Yuri, you're getting another shout out. He took apart part of the carburetor and blew really hard through some tube and said, see, there was stuff in it. We put it back in and we were like, it's running better. Let's send it again. It still didn't run.
How many? And when you say tuning carbs, this isn't like you're tweaking a 4-barrel.
No. These are just...
walk through the carburetor, because this is why it sounded good at high RPMs if you could ever get it there.
Yeah, it had 3 Weber carburetors. This was a 3.2 or 3.0 liter.
3.0. 3-liter Maserati quad cam V6.
Quad cam overhead. These are a beautiful motor.
3 downdraft 2-barrel Webers.
In fact, we're going to have a link to Just for Sale video right here.
Or over here. I don't know which,
yeah.
Whoever's in the corner. But anyway, so it sounded amazing. And in a rage of frustration, I looked at the sky and I said, as God is my witness, this thing just doesn't have enough gas. And Chris went, we should look into that.
So we pulled off the fuel filter.
And I am going to post the greatest fuel filter picture
do we have that
ever.
Still?
I do. It's on my Facebook. Do you want to talk about it while I pull that up?
At first, we pulled the one filter, which is the metal one off the pump, and some stuff came out. We're like, okay, a little bit of stuff, that's fine. We put a bigger one on, and they kept running it. It ran for longer, and then we pulled the filter off and let it dry out, and we basically poured an entire pot of coffee grounds out of the filter.
Yeah,
and that wasn't long, right? I'm sorry if you said that before. No, it wasn't
very long at all.
Mm-mm.
And so we would come in but it ran great for a period of time that was longer than it ever had. And that's ultimately what it was the filters were getting clogged by rust.
Jeff, are you pulling it?
I am pulling it. It's going to take me a minute to get there. It's back a few years.
That was it. But all the stuff we had done to tune the carbs is at the spark. So once we solved the fuel problem, the thing actually ran phenomenally because we had done so much else just right. I mean, setting the float levels in the Webers. There's a whole
I pulled those Webers off so many times.
And you got to sync all 6 barrels together. That's what the sucker tool is for and all that stuff. But it was great. And with the Buick distributor and the Petronix igniter that was in it and the hot coil and everything set perfectly, it ran beautifully once it actually could get enough gas
in our power.
But it took all of Thompson. It took half of New Hampshire until we figured this out, and then we just put more stuff in it. And then for New Jersey, we had the tank cleaned. When I brought it to the gas tank guy, he's like, I've never seen one like this. There's so many baffles in it. I can't actually do the normal thing. So we did electrolysis on it. And then we rigged up this 3 filter manifold. Yep,
I'm sure.
There it is.
Manifold.
Yeah.
It was 2 filters here, and then there's one below the floor right here.
Yep. And that way, so when one filter clogs up, the other one takes over.
and
this would get us like an hour and a half.
No, once we did the tank done and the tank.
Oh, the tank in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it was fine.
Yeah.
Ran all that New Jersey race, no problem.
I think we did that when we still had before we had the tank electrolysis, and it would last like 45 minutes. We could get like a normal shift when we first did that. Oh, and
it literally, there's going the coffee grounds. It literally
I found
looked
the
like
coffee grounds. Right, here it comes. So this is what the filter looked like. And I got to tell you, we did everything in our power, and then we pulled this out.
Yeah.
Now, those are the same filters you were just looking at with that dual setup, and that's what it was doing, so never, ever believe we just did the fuel system. It's fine. It's not fine. Even if they did just do the fuel system, you've got basically exposed metal that is always covered with a corrosive material, and it will rust when given air. And that's not hyperbole. That's what gas tanks do.
The tanks, they taste you better with the full of fuel. But then they get water and the condensation on them over the years and stuff like that. And that's what makes it nasty. So
can I give a tip here?
Please.
So the tip here
This isn't just the tip, no?
No. This is a tip on how to find a problem. Because we're just not talking about battle stories here. We're trying to give good advice on how to find a problem.
Yes.
If you have an intermittent problem, if you have a car that you're not sure about, if you can't figure out what it is, it's the old adage. It's spark or fuel. When a car won't run 99 out of 100, it's spark or fuel.
Can it be air?
It's very rare that it's air.
If you have no compression, that's a much
well, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's you can eliminate those
air
things
leaks
pretty quickly. But if a car
that's no compression
runs
Okay.
and then doesn't run. Runs a little, runs weak. You're probably talking spark or fuel. Chase the spark or fuel. If it feels like spark, it's probably fuel. If it feels like fuel, it's probably spark. If a guy said, I just changed that tank, don't believe him. He's lying.
Well, let's do a
Check
quick
the
couple tips
things.
on that, Jeff.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
how do you check
the
for spark?
things.
Stick your finger in it.
How do you check for fuel? Yeah. Zap pulled off the coil off the distributor. and if
Ow,
you get
that
zapped,
one's not
it's
it.
okay.
Ow, ow, ow. That's not it either.
Oh,
Ow!
Rally and Connie. Yes.
A good way to check for spark is pull. If you can put a light in the spark plug wire between the
Sure.
plug and the thing, and the lights check that flashes. That's great.
Does
and then
anybody
you can
own
get-
one of those?
I do.
Do you do?
Uh,
I do.
If
I
you,
just go.
I got it for the Citroen actually. So I got it specifically for the Citroen. You can also unscrew a plug, put the wire on it, and put it on the block somewhere.
So it
ground-
grounds.
the body
so
that grounds,
Yep.
and then someone cranks it, and someone looks at the plug and see if you see sparky spark.
Yeah.
That's
So
a good way.
Sparky spark.
healthy spark versus non-healthy spark.
Well, and
Can
then
you see that?
following that logic, and correct me as I invariably get this wrong, a lot of your newer systems don't use traditional plugs, even in cars that we're starting to see in our particular level of racing. So you'll have distributor or ignition coils
Ignition
and
on.
packs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still traditional
And-
plugs, but it's no distributors. So the coil
Yeah.
is directly onto the plug.
So how do you test those?
Same thing. Just
There you go. Just making
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Or and then if it's one of those deep down in the engine things, you can just have a spare and start swapping out individuals and see if that makes a difference.
Mhm.
if
I
it's not
think-
running, if it has a miss, unplug a coil per cylinder or an injector per cylinder or a
Mm-hmm.
plug wire per cylinder, and find the one that doesn't make it change. And if
We
that
did
one
this
doesn't
with the
make it change,
300Z forever.
we did it with the Civic. Even that time it had the bad injector. Like something's rough, so we started pulling coils. Cylinder one, nothing changed. So cylinder one's not firing. Let's figure out why. We tried moving a coil, didn't change it. So therefore, injector, that was the problem.
I'll just say one more thing on the fuel and the spark. Healthy spark versus not healthy spark. 99 out of 100 again. Spark is spark, but weak fuel is going to stop a car way before weak spark. Oh, I'm blowing out the spark because I'm blowing too much turbo. Really? Really? How many pounds are you pushing? If you're 2.3 liter Ford at 7 pounds of boost, you're not blowing out the spark.
And you can, if you have an air fuel gauge in the car, this will give you a good idea if you're running lean or running rich. That's a nice tuning tool to have. You don't have to watch it very often, but when something's wrong, it really does help figure that out. A fuel pressure gauge, whether it's built in or one you can just put on the system, also great. In worst case scenario, I've even pulled entire injector sets out, stuck them in bottles, and turned cranked the car.
I think that's
to
a
see what
great story.
flows.
I think you should really talk about that.
All right. Well, in the Civic, the Civic wasn't running for a long time, and it ended up being one wire that was supposed to be hot in run and crank, that was black and yellow, was accidentally wired with a different black and yellow wire that was hot in run but not crank. So anytime you went to, it was very difficult to test.
And that showed as a start problem, right?
Yeah,
you could
it
get
did.
to
It wouldn't start.
and then it would start and then die, right? I mean, it would
It would
it
crank and
wouldn't
then maybe
turn over.
it would crank, but it wouldn't do anything.
Okay.
So anyway, one thing, I tried to check the injectors, so I pulled them all out, left them in the rail, left the rail all hooked up to everything, put them in 4 water bottles, cranked the motor, nothing. So then I made a separate harness to plug each of the injectors to put 12 volts to the injectors just to turn them on while under pressure with the fuel pump. And sure enough, they all came on. Some crud came out of them because the motor was a junkyard motor, but then they flowed reasonably well. So therefore we knew the injectors, okay. So something was not telling them to turn on. That was the problem. So now we're tracing it back to signal.
The injectors work. Let me just go through it again real quick here. So the injectors were not firing. So you hooked up a separate system and they fired. So you knew it wasn't a physical problem with the injectors. You knew it
Correct.
was a wiring problem between the ECU and the injectors, or you
Exactly.
were going backwards. Yep.
Exactly.
You went
And also
shorthand there. I just wanted to
That
explain
also
it.
proved that there was the fuel pressure into the system was enough to run the injectors constantly, and they flowed okay.
I thought that was great diagnostics, by the way. I love that. You showed it to me and I was like, oh, that's cool.
And then you take the crappy gas you just poured in those water bottles and put it in your lawnmower.
So your lawnmower won't run, and then you have
So-
to figure out what's wrong with your lawnmower.
That's only with 20-year-old gas. This was not that old.
So, but
And
at
that's-
that point, or go on, Rental.
Well, no, finish your that point because
I was going
I'm
to say,
looking
so
for a
at,
transition.
at that point, you knew the spark was okay. Or
Oh, no,
did you know?
I was just confirming injectors worked, but that told me injectors work, but nothing's telling them to turn on. So why is nothing telling them to turn on? Something in the ECU is not triggering the injectors. Why? So went back that way.
Got it. Because we've had spark problem in the Civic.
Yeah, that's
Right,
what we're
in
about
the
the one we're
past.
about to talk about.
All right. Go ahead.
And before we
Okay.
get there, because this is that good one, and I apologize because I threw this in the wrong thing, but we're running down the fuel. You two were the ones that figured out what was going on with the TR7 at pit, because it would run for 3 laps and then shut down on the side of the road, and we had to keep bribing the tow truck driver with cookies.
I remember that.
Yep.
Because they brought us in so many times, and you guys were going and everything was showing up proper on the fuel. Everything was showing up proper on the spark. So at that point, you have eliminated the possibility of under the hood and you begin to trace it backwards.
And I think someone was dealing with the tank and looking around and felt the tank and said, yeah, this tank is really hot. Like, this is hotter than I would expect the tank to be. Like, the fuel gets warm when if it's in a system that is constantly pumping it from the engine back to the tank, like most, it's a return system that most cars are. And once it goes through the engine, it warms up, comes back to the tank. Okay, it gets warm, but it was warmer than we thought. So we started looking around, tracing the path of the system. And sure enough, and let's say it again, this car ran for a little bit, and once you got on it for a little while, then it would start to fail. Then it would cool off and it'd be totally fine every time.
Yeah. Can I say that that's probably a heat problem? Like,
Yeah.
if you're running until it gets hot and then it gets a little bad, real worse, real bad, screw you, I'm not running, something's overheating.
But this one was run, done running.
Yep.
Mhm.
So we started looking at the fuel system. We traced the whole thing. And sure enough, we found one of the mufflers had split open on a seam, and the exhaust was coming out right onto, was it the pump or the line filter?
the
I
One
want
of
to say it
fuel
was
those.
the
pump.
line. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those important things. Anyway, so you run it hard enough, it was boiling the fuel at that spot and vapor locking it, and we're lucky we didn't catch on fire.
Mhm.
Basically.
We're always lucky.
Yep.
That's great.
Well,
Yep.
that's the story of the TR7.
Congratulations, you didn't die.
Yeah.
Woo!
That's the story of the TR7. You're lucky you didn't catch on fire. Oh, okay,
I
good, thank you.
believe that's correct. Yeah.
Actually, there's never been a time with the TR7 where it wasn't you're lucky you didn't die. It's always you're lucky you didn't die. It tried to split itself in two.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
I didn't even remember that was the TR7. I thought that was the RX7.
Nope.
No, I
TR7.
believe
No,
you. I
definitely
believe that
TR.
TR7 trying to
That
kill
was that
you.
one
at
That
all
was-
race.
times.
yeah, it was desperate.
We pulled it out of the field out of
Oh,
desperation.
That's right. Yeah. The pit. It was pit race.
Yeah.
I remember doing it. I remember fixing it on the floor there.
Yep.
That was great. Let's talk about some Spark stories.
All right. So yeah, this is the Civic at Road Atlanta. Jeff's out running. Everything's running great. It's wet. He comes into it, locks the brakes up, engine stalls, but then it comes right back on. So, but in doing that, this is a foreshadowing. The engine moved a lot when that'll happen. When it goes from on to off to on, it moves around. And then after that, anytime there was kind of a transition, the motor would kind of cut out
It was bad.
and move around. It just like stop, nothing, and then come back, but your foot's on the gas, and it would come back on throttle, and the boost would
Yeah.
come up, and you'd go again. So it was a lot of transitions, and it was just from nothing to perfectly fine. Nothing perfectly
Hopping
fine.
through the exhaust.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah, so
throwing
we get the
my
blow
head
off
forward.
valve too. The blow off valve. Plus, yeah, you heard fuel go into the exhaust and ignite in the exhaust. So that one signal right there taught us something. We said, hang on, if fuel is making it into the exhaust, that's a problem, and that tells us it's not burning. Why is it not burning, or why is it getting out of the engine? So we start following that path. we check we put a new distributor on, doesn't change it, because that's the first thing you try with a Honda. We check the timing to make sure the timing belt didn't jump a tooth, which maybe would have fuel spraying in the engine with the valve slightly open. Check that.
I've forgotten that we had checked that.
Wasn't that. We're looking everywhere. We're doing the multimeter on the ECU. Is there power in the wires are supposed to be? Yep. Yes, there is. Well, we're doing it. And then we're just out of ideas, and we start just looking at everything really carefully. And this has taken half a day. And
Mark with the fantastic accent came over and was helping us.
And then plus that random dude with the accent we can't figure out, he was there too. I don't remember his accent. His accent was amazing. Anyway, we start looking a little closer at everything because we're so frustrated at this point. There's nothing else we can do. And
it's also miserably cold.
Yeah. So we pick up the wire harness and to like de-pin something. Like, I'm not into it. So I'm going to de-pin some things and make sure they work. And as soon as I bend the harness back and look at it, sure enough, the insulation on 2 or 3 of the wires is broken. And there's like one thread of wire hanging on. And this is the distributor has the coil, the igniter, and the cam angle sensor in it. So all those things kind of important to get the car to run.
Can I make a corollary? What is it when you match two things together? Corollary, I think.
Correlation.
Correlation. I'm going to make correlation here. The TR7 and the Honda, everything tested right, but we found a physical problem. So I'm going to say that, like, because you ohmed out those wires. You knew that the wires were all connected. Sometimes you really got to feel everything to feel what's wrong.
And if a wire ohms out, it doesn't have any load on it at that point. All it is checking that, where once it has more power going through it's more load. One strand of copper is not enough to carry that load, where you need the whole thing. That was the problem. And also, when the car was on and off the boost, on and off the gas, the motor was moving, and you'd be surprised at how much a motor moves. If you ever see one on a dyno, it's amazing how much they move. And that was flexing that harness and opening and closing that joint. That was bad.
Can I say another? Oh, go on.
Well, this Sebring last year, me, Pantless Matt, and Donnie was working on his HHR. And we had a similar problem. We had an electrical miss we could not identify. Everything was plugged in correctly. Now, Chris touched on this earlier about knowing the history of the vehicle. And a guy who was there just to crew for another team, who was a GM person, walked over and said, "Tell me what you've done to this." And Donnie walked through some of just the repairs and modifications. And he said, "When you pulled that, did you pull the wiring harness?" "Yes. And I laid it out over here so I didn't have to disconnect it." And based on experience and knowing what had been done, he pointed to a plug-in module and said, "You've got a pin that's crossed up." So we unplugged where the main wiring harness goes into, and sure, where there's 24 of those little tiny pins, one of them was laying down and it crossed over and was causing a short across the wires. That was not detectable. We couldn't find any break in the wiring harness, but we knew it was a generalized electrical short. And it's that Sherlock Holmes, when you've eliminated all of your possible, then that's when the impossible becomes probable.
Yeah. I mean, de-pinning stuff and when all the wires are there, but it's still not, the electrons are still not moving. Good luck finding that.
It just requires diligence, patience, write things down. However, you've got to possibly start eliminating, Chris, all right, the injector is not firing. Why? And there's an answer to that. And I would also argue that anytime you've got a liquid in your exhaust, always a bad thing.
Yeah,
if it's gasoline,
definitely.
Something broke. If there's water in your exhaust, something broke.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that is exactly what Chris was doing when he found that broken wire. Is he was literally, with the entire map, going to trace every single wire. I mean, right? That's what we were doing.
Yeah. That's why I pulled the harness back enough so I could actually get it close enough to ohm out both sides of it. And that's when I saw the break in it. A lot of these cars are running or getting older. The wiring is breaking down.
A lot of
Gotta
these
check
race
that
cars
stuff.
live outside.
Yeah, well, even the Mazda, it's an 07. We had the broken wire on the MAF, which is what caused it to run poorly at the end of New Jersey, because the wire was broken on the MAF, probably a result of the engine falling out of the car. But
knowing the history of the car, oh, the engine fell out, I bet.
right. Well, also 250,000 miles on the car. It's been hot. Things happen. That wire flexed enough that it broke.
I'm going to give out another tip here, and it's going to be with a little story. Have a second set of eyes and have them like looking at the non-obvious stuff. And here's the story.
Manny.
Wagovan. No, Wagovan.
Okay, I'll still throw a plug for Manny. Manny
That's
helped
fine.
us a
Manny's
ton with
great.
the Citroen.
Manny's great.
Manny has helped us with the Civic. When I am out of ideas, I go to Manny, and
Yeah.
he's the one that comes up with stuff. Like the one time I didn't put the dowel pins in.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Manny's the one that figured that out because he's
Came
amazing.
over and went, isn't there like a dowel pin here or something? Yeah.
The other, hold on, the other resource, Matt's dad with,
Oh,
Carbs.
GM everything. Absolutely.
yep.
So, Chris, you are our suspension expert. You are the Civic expert. One time in the Wagovan, you pulled it in and you said, "Yeah, it's not right. Something's wrong. Something's wrong." And then you got on the rear wheel and you shook it and you were like, "Something's wrong." And then you started like every single bushing on the lower suspension. You were pulling on them individually and you're like, "I can't find it. They all feel good. I can't find it. All feel good." And I was standing in the hatch and I could see the top hat bolts going click, 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 click. And so I think sometimes you need the second set of eyes to look for the muskrat. You know what I mean? When you open the hood, there's a live muskrat. That's the problem. Sometimes when you're the person who built the car, when you're the person who wrenches on the car all the time, you will focus on the details that you think are wrong and you'll miss the forest for the trees. And having that second set of eyes is really important. So bring over the person who hasn't done everything and say, "I'm going to walk you through this. Let me tell you what it's doing. Tell me what I'm missing."
Ain't got no gas in it.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it ain't got no gas in it.
That's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Totally
that.
a thing.
I know that happened in the Corvette recently. It's broken.
Yep.
There's
Ain't got no
in it.
gas.
Yeah, that's a thing.
But that's an excellent point about suspension. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And suspension is a bit of an insidious thing because the parts tend to wear out before they fail. And if you're the one in the car all the time, you may not necessarily notice, but if you get in the car and you're like, it doesn't feel right. And I'm not going to dig up the episode on diagnosing on the fly, but one of the things Chris said is when you're talking to people, don't give them the diagnosis, give them the symptoms.
Yeah, everyone said, "What's wrong with it?" "I think it's the head gasket." I didn't ask you what you think what you think the problem is. Tell me what it's doing.
It's exactly what I was trying to say. Like, even if you think, "I'm pretty sure it's that." No. Tell me what it's doing. Tell me what you touched. Let me hear the story and let them think about the answer you're not thinking
Well,
about.
like at Laguna, and the guy's like, "No, it definitely a head gasket's blown. It won't run. Head gasket's blown." We're like, "Okay. What happened?" "No, it's a head gasket." "Okay, tell me what happened." "Well, I went from fifth to fourth and all of a sudden it just stopped running." It's not a head gasket.
Okay,
Missed a few steps in there, and
Yeah.
I don't
let's
think it was in
see if the
fourth.
motor will spin.
Yep.
Clang.
Nope. Motor's not
Nope.
spinning. Oh,
no.
What's
This
called
is done.
you did what's called a money shift, sir.
Yeah. I had forgotten that he came in convinced it was the head gasket.
Oh yeah. Solidly convinced.
Yep.
You couldn't tell that guy anything though.
That's true.
No.
He's the one who did it and then left, I think. I don't
No,
think
he went
yep.
to go buy a new motor.
Oh, that's right. I was
I
going to say he
found
wasn't
one.
around.
And he took off and he drove quite quickly to get said motor that the place was about to close. But fortunately, he was a
That's
state
fine.
cop, so
He was some sort of police officer. He was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Ponch John. I'm not sure which one he was.
Yep. All right.
Anyway, do we want to talk about this other story here? This
Yeah, why
listener
not?
story.
Well, so we've talked about fuel, and we've talked about electrical, and we've touched on suspension because it has a tendency to wear. We did solicit stories from you, our listeners, and we got a good one from the FOMOCO Ford Focus, which the Eric Root episode talks about using this team as an example of doing things smart, doing things progressive, and not focused on just being fast. But they had been working on this Focus for a while. And I just put the middle part in this right here. They had 60 PSI of oil across when they were in the car after they installed an oil cooler. Now, it was fairly solid regardless of what the engine was doing, which the engine oil pressure should change as you rev the motor. And
yeah, for those of you who don't know cars, 60 psi of oil.
That's good.
That's
But
good.
it's good when it's running at moderate RPM. If it's hot
idle, no, that's bad. That's a lot.
Yeah. And so after multiple wide open throttle third gear pulls, the oil pressure dropped and the warning light came on. So they shut it down, but it was too late. And I love this quote. Dropping the pan revealed more glitter than you want to come home with from a night you don't remember. And all the rod
it's like
bearing
a Kesha
were
concert
blue.
in there.
Yes. So they did a quick
Only if
with
it's gold
cleaner,
glitter.
changed out the bearings on the bottom, replaced the oil, fired up the engine, still had that 60 PSI at idle, very static. So it did not change with engine speed. They shut it down because that's what Jeff is saying, not what it's supposed to do. And they deleted their oil cooler and accumulator. And then they got a 75 PSI at a cold idle, and the oil pressure gauge was tracking with the engine speed like it should. So they have now eliminated a chunk of this that is causing the problem. So they use these logical things of remove, replace this part, remove, replace this part, remove, replace this part. And what they came to was a valve in the oil cooler accumulator that was installed backwards.
It's always worth checking the last thing you did, especially if you're the one that changed what the engineers spent millions of dollars to come up with.
Yep.
And you, in your infinite wisdom and your Harbor Freight tools and your Summit catalog, I can do better.
The meme of the president of Mazda, yes, we spent 10 years designing the Miata, but you bought coilovers on eBay. We have job for you.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to, I love the idea of what did you do last? Like if it was working this point and now it is not working, what did you do in between? We had we were helping another 2.3 liter Mustang, and this is part of the Garage Heroes in Training crew at the time. It's Alan's now.
The Mustang.
The Mustang, yeah.
So
but back
hopeless.
then it was still Spider Mustang, I think.
Yeah, I do love that Alan
And-
painted the fuel tank pink on the car right now. That is my favorite
got
detail.
udders
Going
on
for
it.
the theme.
Yeah, it's good. And we had just adjusted the distributor and we sent it out and it died immediately. And he was convinced it was the boost. Oh, is the boost not running?
Good
The
gosh,
boost not
right,
running.
right.
All right, so it must be the boost, must be the boost. And I was like, what did you do to the distributor again? He said, oh, I changed the points. I said, okay. And I put my hand on the distributor and it was in pieces. And like if you didn't touch it, it looked like it was still together and just the plastic had shattered. And basically he had missed a screw in the rotor, and at speed the rotor had flung off the shaft and destroyed the distributor cap. So Chris, 2 points. Check what you just touched. If it was running before and it is now not running, you broke it.
Wow.
Facts. Yeah. Whatever you did, you made it worse.
Potentially you broke it. Potentially.
At least that's a good point to start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Does anybody want to wrap this up with a philosophical quote about taking your time or? Work
This-
the book.
Just go methodically and carefully. Once you're out of ideas and you're frustrated, walk away for a few minutes, get your head in the right space, get someone else to look at it, and start going methodically, carefully, and looking at things you don't expect that are related. But go in a process. Follow the flow. Why is this not working? This is a problem to be solved. Be a
I love your
scientist.
racingjunk.com. Their pen there,
And
mental.
this is a skill set, and this is one of the joys of racing, at least endurance racing at this level. This is a skill set that translates to everything. Every job I've had, I'm the dumbest guy in the office, but I will come from a race weekend having gone through all the emotions of this level of frustration, and just using these standard practices solve a problem. Not solve a problem, or at least identify a problem. What's the last thing we touched? What's the last thing we changed? Why is this not working? Where can we make an improvement on this? So these are you don't feel bad if you don't master it, or if you spend all weekend with a car that doesn't run because of a 50-cent piece that you could have solved in 10 minutes, as long as you walked away from it learning something.
Aaron Kaufman, the big bushy haired guy who used to be with Gas Monkey Garage, who
Bushy
actually
beard. He had
bushy
white
beard.
hair.
Yes,
I'm bushy haired.
Sorry, bushy beard guy. He said every engine wants to run. If it's got fuel and it's got spark.
Not the one that
no-
was in the RX at the end. That
no,
engine
but that one-
really did not
True,
matter.
no.
true. Though that
Yeah,
was
no.
really Bernie.
But what I'm saying is, like, it's usually the physics. Like, start with the basics. Does it have fuel? Does it have spark? Does it have compression?
Is it not full of water in the combustion chambers and flowing out the exhaust?
Sometimes it's the muskrat under the hood.
That engine fell out. Huh.
Okay, there's a couple times where it's doesn't have all the parts that it needs to
Yeah.
run.
All right. Anything
right.
else before we wrap it up and move on to our favorite segment?
If you did not share with us, but this has sparked a memory in your head, get a hold of us on any of our social medias. Tell us a story of how you found the unidentifiable problem that almost ruined your weekend or did ruin your weekend, and how you fixed it.
Love it. All right. We're going to move on. Chrissy, do you have a just the tip? Don't
No.
shake your head. It's an audio podcast.
I know. I was trying to find my unmute button. No, I don't.
She's like,
I'm going to apologize for the disappointment. I'm giving you just the tip.
oh,
Oh.
just the mental tip.
Tip. Oh,
Oh,
so sad.
all right. If you are
And so
listening
you
to this
can give
podcast,
me just the tip anytime you want.
Oh, wow. Okay.
there's a strong possibility you have a trailer, even if it's not your automotive trailer, or you've got a tow vehicle, or you've got something that you don't drive all the time. And we've talked about this before, but this week I had an almost incident that reaffirmed the need to talk about this. Now I'm going to share the screens. I mentioned that earlier this week, I drove my RV from its storage center, which I don't park my RV on concrete because that will dehydrate your tires. I park it on gravel. And in bringing the vehicle there, I just do a once around. Okay, all the tires are round. They hold air. This is my front RV tire. As I begin to drive the 5 miles to the emissions testing station, I notice a slight wobble in the front wheel. And when I get to the emissions testing station, I soon find the cause. This is the front tire of my RV. And you will notice it has split completely. How it is still holding air is a miracle.
Yeah,
I
the
do not.
tread is
Yeah,
separating
I believe they
Yeah.
call
On-
that tread separation.
on the inside tread block. It looks like you have an alignment issue to start with, though. That didn't help it. But the tread is definitely separating. Huh?
Absolutely.
I believe this is what like killed the Ford Explorer, right?
And this is also it's a twin I-beam suspension, which is not known for its excellent tire wear. Let's be honest.
Facts, all facts. So I did a once around and also found this lovely thing. So on your tow vehicle, folks, just walk out there, check those date codes on
Ooh.
those tires.
Yikes.
It's a nice
Look.
split in the sidewall. And
Yeah.
also that looks like that sidewall's rubbed against some stuff in the past. That didn't help.
Well, he is
Okay.
driving an RV, so
Well,
Corners, they jump out at you.
true. Well, the worst thing
Little
for tires,
children,
the worst thing for tires is UVs.
That's what I was about to say. Go ahead, Chris.
And mental's in the desert, and you know what they get a lot of in the desert? UVs.
Absolutely.
You put
if you're
some
next to the
suntan
tires,
lotion on it.
get some of those. They make tire covers for RVs to kind of go over them to help from that.
They do, and this is most likely going to be the last iterate. It's getting new tires. This is going to be the last. The RV is going up for sale because I don't use it like I used to. But just
It's what you get for buying a house, living in a city that you work instead of living in a city you work in 2,000 miles away.
But the if it's a vehicle that you only drive on track weekends or you just tow on race weekends or something like that, before you overload it on a Thursday and jump into it with only a handful of hours of sleep to try and get to the track before 10 o'clock or before 7 a.m. where you're immediately going to start drinking or unloading or doing things and paying attention. If any of these had gone out at speed on a vehicle the size of an RV, that's a nightmare. And those of us, we've been on trailers, we've experienced blowouts and this sort of thing. On your way home from work or to work, take an extra hour, drive by your storage place, walk around your trailer, your RV, your tow peg, just check out the tires. And if say, like, I don't know, you bought the thing in 2015 and still the original tires, maybe you should have budgeted a replacement for those a number of years ago before you drove all the way across the country.
Or if your trailer is one that you got from a shady guy in the middle of the night and it's probably stolen, assume the tires are not very good. Yeah.
Facts. Yeah.
Before you go on a long tow.
And Metal, let's just talk really quick about the concrete, because concrete does kill RV tires.
Yes.
It is some sort of outgas. What is exactly the reason that concrete kills tires? Is
It dehydrates them.
Dehydrates them.
Absolutely. So even if you're just storing your race tires or whatever in your garage, have a cardboard barrier between them and the concrete. And if you park your trailer, your tow pig, your race car anywhere on the concrete, carpet samples, cardboard, things of that nature. And we've got old episodes where we talk about putting the car away for the long winter's nap, and the same thing with your tow pigs and your trailers and your pit bikes, all of these things.
Yeah, when my
VCT tiles are incredible.
That works.
Barriers, and they're super cheap and available everywhere.
When my father stored the RV at a storage lot that was concrete, we had big rectangles of plywood, and we would just stick them on the tires and then drive up on them 2 feet. You don't need to jack things up; just drive over them. Yep.
Woof.
Woof.
The dog agrees.
The dog agrees.
Sorry, we've got the big dog, and she doesn't get up like she used to, so she is fighting going outside before dinner.
Oh.
And Moko is very supportive. Moko is here being a cheerleader.
Oh,
You can do it, Rika.
Moko.
You can do it, Rika.
oh goodness.
Oh.
Oh boy. Well, I'm going to wrap it up by saying thank you for downloading us. We hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Everyone Racers. We also hope your dog is feeling well and doesn't need a lift up. Whether it's a Bones Day or a No Bones Day, we hope you'll join us in the world of driving, racing, and building, because everyone can be a racer, even you. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe, send us an email, give us a 5-star rating. If you have any questions or show ideas, drop a comment on our Facebook page, Everyone Racers, or email us at everyone.racers@gmail.com. You can text Mental pictures or tire sales flyers 484-243-0455. Find us on Instagram or Twitter at everyone.racers, YouTube and Facebook, Everyone Racers. We are still posting on the full episodes.
Full episodes are available on Rumble.
Rumble.
Can we
you
put them
will
on
be
YouTube too, please? The whole ones?
Yeah, we'll get
That'd be
there.
great.
Reddit/E1R.
We'll talk.
Thanks again, and until next week, keep the shiny side up. Unless you got that 258 AMC, and we know there's no shiny side because it just gets everything everywhere and all the mud. Then just keep those wheels down.